Hi guys, you're welcome back to Indra Pro YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to cut and sew a long pencil skirt with side elastic, a zipper and a pleated slit. It is so detailed, beginner friendly and very easy to understand. So if you're interested, please keep on watching. And if this is your first time on the channel, please click on the subscribe button and also don't forget to like, share and drop a comment. So I'll be using this Ankara fabric you see here and this lining. The first thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to fold my fabric, and I'll be cutting the front block of the skirt first. So when folding your fabric, you'll be folding using the biggest part of your body, which is your hip divided by 4 plus 1.5 inch or 2 inch sewing allowance. So my hip is 44 divided by 4 is 11 inch, and I'll be adding 1.5 inch to that 11 inch. So when folding, I'm going to go ahead to fold using 13 inch. Once I'm done doing that, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is to cut out the excess fabric I have on the side. So here I have the piece of fabric I'll be using for the front block of the skirt. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to draw a straight horizontal line at the top of my fabric. This line I'm drawing is going to be serving as the waistline. So once I'm done doing this, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is to insert my vertical measurement. That is my waist to hip depth, waist to knee and the waist to the full length. So because I'll be attaching the waistband to the skirt, I'll not be starting my measurement from 1. I'm going to go ahead to drag my tape upward starting from number 2. So the 2 inch upward is going to be replaced by the waistband I'm going to be attaching to the skirt later on. So the next I'm going to go ahead to do now is to insert my waist to hip depth measurement. So my waist to hip depth measurement is 10 inch. I'm going to go ahead to mark it. After marking it, I'm going to go ahead to insert my waist to 2 inch above the knee and mark. Once I'm done doing that, I'm going to go ahead to insert the full length of the skirt and mark, after which I'll go ahead to draw straight horizontal line at the point I just marked like you see me doing in the video. So after drawing the horizontal line, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to insert my horizontal measurement. So on the waistline, I'm going to go ahead to insert my hip measurement on the waistline because I am attaching an elastic to the side of the skirt. But if you're not doing this, you can simply go ahead to insert your waist divided by 4 on this side. But because I'm fixing an elastic, I'm going to go ahead to insert my hip measurement divided by 4 on the waistline. Then I'll go ahead to add a sewing allowance of 1.5 inch. So once I'm done doing that, I'm going to go ahead to move over to the hip depth line, and on this line I'll go ahead to still insert my hip divided by 4 plus 1.5 inch side seam allowance. Once I'm done doing that, I'll go ahead to connect the waistline to the hip line using my ruler like you see me doing in the video. So once I'm done doing that, this is what it is going to look like. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to move over to the knee line. And on the knee line, I'm going to go ahead to minus 6 inch for my hip measurement. So it's a pencil skirt. It depends on how penciled you want it to be. If you want it very fitted at that point, you can go ahead to minus 8 inch from your hip circumference measurement. But I don't want it fitted. So what I'll go ahead to do is to minus 6 inch for my total hip circumference measurement. Then I'll go ahead to divide it by 4. So my hip is 44 minus 6 is 38. And that 38 divided by 4 is 9 inch. I'll go ahead to insert the 9 inch on the new line, then I'll add a sewing allowance of 1.5 inch. Once I'm done doing that, I'm going to move over to the hemline. So on the hemline, I'm going to go ahead to repeat what I have on the new line. So I'm going to go ahead to insert 10.5 inch on the hemline, after which I'll go ahead to connect the hip to the new line and the new line to the hem using my ruler like you see me doing in the video. So after connecting the side, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is to cut it out. But I'll not be cutting the excess I have on this hem because I want it to overlap on the inside like this. So I'm going to go ahead to fold it over like so, and my lining will be stopping at this point. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to trim the hem of the skirt. Then I'll go ahead to extend this line downward, after which I'll cut out the skirt like you see me doing in the video. So after cutting, this is what the front block of the pencil skirt is going to look like. Next, we are going to move over to the back block of the skirt. So for the back block of the skirt, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric. So when folding your fabric for the back block of the skirt, you're going to go ahead to fold using your hip divided by 4 plus 1.5 inch for your side seam allowance and 1.5 inch for your zipper allowance. So the difference between the front and the back is the zipper allowance that you'll be adding to the back block of the skirt. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead to do now on the back block of the skirt is to mark out a zipper allowance of 1.5 inch on the center back all the way down. After marking it, I'll go ahead to connect the point together with a straight line like this. So here I have the zipper allowance drawn out. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to place the front block of the skirt on this back block like so, making sure that the front block is starting from the zipper allowance like you see me doing in the video. So once I'm done placing it, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to cut out the back block of the skirt following what I already have on the front block of the skirt. So there is no need to add any other measurement on this skirt. The only difference between the front and the back is the zipper allowance you have. So I'm going to go ahead to cut it out like you see me doing in the video. So after cutting it out, this is what it is going to look like. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to notch this actual length of the pencil skirt. Then I'll go ahead to cut out the lining. So when cutting out the lining is going to start from the waist and it will stop where this folding stops. So I'll go ahead to quickly do that, then I'll come back to show you what to do next. So I'm going ahead to cut out my lining for the skirt, and this is what it is going to look like. So the lining should start from the waistline and stop before the folding. So this is what the lower part of the lining should look like once you're done cutting it out. And here I have the back block of the skirt, and I've also gone ahead to open up the zipper allowance of the skirt. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to join my lining to my main fabric, and in doing that I'm going to go ahead to place the lining on the main fabric, making sure that the lining is facing the good face of the fabric. Then I'll go over my sewing machine to close up the hem of the skirt. Once I'm done closing up the hem of the skirt, I'm going to drag it upward and I'll go ahead to close up the sides of the skirt. I'll be repeating the same thing for the back block of the skirt also, after which I'll come back to show you what to do next. So the waistline is going to be left open because you'll be turning the fabric over to the good face using the waistline of the skirt. So after attaching my lining to the skirt, this is what it is going to look like. So I went ahead to give it a good press, and this is what we have after joining the lining to the main fabric. The next thing we are going to go ahead to do now is to work on the back block of the skirt. The first thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to measure 10 inch from the waistline. I'll go ahead to mark, then I'll start stitching from this point down to where I want my slit opening to be. So I'm going to go ahead to quickly do that now, then I'll come back to show you what to do next. So after I was done sewing that part, this is what we have. So now we are going to go ahead to attach our pleated slits to the back block of the skirt. So to attach the pleated slit to the back block of the skirt, the first thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to measure what I have on the slit opening. So from where the slit starts from, you're going to go ahead to take your measurements all the way down to the hem of the skirt. So what I have here is 21 inch. And I've gone ahead to cut out this piece of fabric that I'll be using to create the pleat at the back of the skirt. So the width of this piece of fabric is going to be 30 inch. That is, when you fold it into two, you'll be having 15 inch. While the length of the fabric is going to be whatever you have on your slit opening plus 1.5 inch allowance. And so when cutting your fabric, you make sure that the width is 30 inch while the length is what you have on your slit opening. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to close my slit opening. So I'm going to go on my sewing machine to run a loose stitch on the slit opening, then I'll come back to show you what to do next. So after closing up the slit opening, this is what we have. So when closing it up, make sure you use a loose stitch to close up the slit opening. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to attach the piece of fabric that we'll be using for the pleat on the back block of the skirt. So I'm going to go ahead to place it like so, making sure that the good face is facing my fabric like this. Then I'll go over my sewing machine to stitch the piece of fabric on the zipper allowance of the skirt. I'm going to go ahead to stitch it on this part of the zipper allowance. Once I'm done stitching it to this part, I'm going to be doing the same thing on the other side also. So make sure that the hem of the piece of fabric is folded before you go ahead to attach it to the zipper allowance of the skirt. So I'm going to go ahead to quickly do that, then I'll come back to show you what to do next. After I was done stitching the piece of fabric to my zipper allowance, this is what we have. So you are stitching it on your zipper allowance, not on your main fabric. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to start creating my pleat. So first I'm going to go ahead to iron it like so to locate the midpoint of the piece of fabric that I'll be using for the pleat of the skirt. So once I'm done ironing it, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to notch the center of the piece of fabric that will be used for the pleated slit. So once I'm done doing that, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to place the center of the piece of fabric on the center of the back block of the skirt. So I'm going to go ahead to open it up like this. Then I'll make sure that the notch part of the piece of fabric is aligning with the center of the back block of the skirt. Once I'm done doing that, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is to secure it with my pin like this. So once I'm done securing it with my pin, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is to give it a good press again so that I can start creating the pleat on the back block of the skirt. So now we're going to go ahead to start creating the pleat, and I'll be starting from this part. So to create the pleat, all you need to do is to place your hand on the center of the back block of the skirt. Then you go ahead to pull the fabric on the upper part on your zipper allowance. So when creating the pleat, all the pleat is going to stop at the zipper allowance of the skirt. So all you need to do is to place it like so. Then you go ahead to place your hand on the center back of the skirt. Then you pull it over like this, making sure that you are creating a pleat. So once I'm done doing this, I'm going to go ahead to keep it in place with my pressing iron. So make sure that the slit starts on the center back and stop on the zipper allowance like you see me doing in the video. So once I'm done doing this, I'm going to go ahead to move over to the other side, and I'll be repeating the same process. So first you lay your fabric like so, then you place your hand on the center back of the skirt. After placing your hand on the center back, you're going to go ahead to pull the upper fabric and place it on the zipper allowance like you see me doing in the video. Once you have it placed on the zipper allowance, the next thing you're going to go ahead to do is to keep it in place with your pressing iron like you see me doing in the video. Once I'm done creating the pleat on this side, I'm going to move over to the other side again, and I'll repeat the same process. So I'm going to go ahead to keep doing the same process until I'm done plaiting the entire fabric on the back block of the skirt. So after creating your pleat, this is what it is going to look like. The next thing you're going to go ahead to do now is to go over your sewing machine and run a stitch on this part. So I'm going to go ahead to quickly do that, then I'll come back to show you what to do next. So after running the stitch on this side, this is what we have. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to turn the skirt over to the good face, after which I'll go ahead to open up the slits like you see me doing in the video. So after opening the slit, this is what we are going to be having. So this is what your pleated slit is going to look like once you open up the slit. As you can see, it came out really nice and it's looking very beautiful already. So the next we are going to go ahead to do now is to join the front and the back block of the skirt together. And in doing that, I'm going to go ahead to place the front block of the skirt on the back like so. After which I'll go over my sewing machine to close up the sides. So I went ahead to join the front and the back block of the skirt together, and this is what we have. I also went ahead to give it a good press, and this is what it should look like once you're done doing that. The next thing we are going to go ahead to do now is to attach the waistband to the waist area of the skirt. And in doing that, I've gone ahead to cut out this waistband that I'll be attaching to the skirt. And the height of the waistband is 2 inches. So whatever you minus from your full length of the skirt is what you'll be using as the height of the waistband. And when cutting the waistband, what I did was to cut out 5 inch. After cutting it out, I went ahead to attach my gum stitch to it. Once I was done doing that, the next thing I went ahead to do was to fold in 0.5 inch on both sides like so. After folding in 0.5 inch, I went ahead to fold it into 2, and this is what we have. And the length of the waistband should be whatever you have on your waist area plus at least 5 inch for allowances. So this is what your waistband is going to look like. So the next thing we are going to go ahead to do now is to attach the waistband to the skirt. skirt, and in doing that I'll be starting from the wrong side of the skirt. So I'm going to go ahead to place the waistband on the wrong side of the skirt like so, making sure that the waistband extends from the skirt by at least 0.5 inch. So make sure that you have 0.5 inch outside the skirt like so. So once I'm done doing that, I'm going to go over my sewing machine to stitch the waistband to the skirt. Then I'll come back to show you what to do next. After attaching the waistband to the skirt, this is what it is going to look like. So this is what the inner part of the waistband is going to look like. The next thing we are going to go ahead to do now is to close up the waistband and also attach the elastic to the waistband. So before closing up the waistband, first I'm going to go ahead to do is to close up this part, and in doing that I'm going to go ahead to fold it over like so. Then I'll run a stitch on it, after which I'll turn it over to the good face. So I've already gone ahead to do that on this other part of the waistband. So I'll just go ahead to quickly turn it over to the good face for you to see what it looks like. So after turning it, this is what it is going to look like. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to place it like so. Then I'll go ahead to close up the waistband. But before doing that, I'll be attaching this elastic you see here on the waistband. So this is a 1-inch elastic. I'm going to go ahead to attach it to the side of the waistband. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to locate the point where I'll be attaching the waistband. And in doing that, I'm going to go ahead to fold my skirt into two like so. After which I'll go ahead to mark half of my bust span measurement. So I'm going to go ahead to place my tape from the center like this, and I'll mark half of my bust span measurement, which is 5 inch. After marking it, I'll also go ahead to mark the same point on the other sides of the skirt. So once I'm done doing that, this is what we are going to be having. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to take the measurement of what I have from the front to the back. So I'm going to go ahead to place my triple like this, after which I'll go ahead to measure what I have from that point down to the back. So what I have here is 11 inch, and you're going to be having the same thing on the other side also. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to cut out my elastic. So to know the amount of elastic I'll be attaching to the side of the skirt, what I'll go ahead to do is to minus 4 or 5 inch from that 11 inch. So I'm going to go ahead to cut out 7 inch for the elastic I'll be attaching to the side of the skirt, and I'll be cutting out 2 pieces of this because I'll be attaching it to both sides of the skirt. So after cutting the elastic, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to place it on the waistband of the skirt. So I'm going to go ahead to place it at the point where I marked. So I'll place my skirt like this, then I'll place one part of the elastic on this part, and I'm going to go ahead to run a stitch on it. Once I'm done doing that, I'm also going to go ahead to place the other side of the elastic on the other part I marked behind the skirt, after which I'll also go ahead to run a stitch on it. And when running your stitch, make sure that you stitch that part 3 to 4 times to keep the elastic in place so it doesn't pull out when the skirt is being worn. And also I'll be repeating the same thing on the other side of the skirt. Once I'm done doing that, I'll go ahead to close up the waistband, then I'll come back to show you the final look of the skirt. After closing up the waistband, this is what it is going to look like. So this is what the side of the skirt is going to look like. I also went ahead to attach my zipper to the skirt, and this is what the skirt is going to look like. So if this tutorial was helpful to you, please don't forget to subscribe if you are yet to, and also don't forget to like, share and drop a comment. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next tutorial.